topic that can quietly yet powerfully shape our lives is resentment. We've all experienced it at some point, but how often do we stop to understand what it really is, where it comes from, and how it affects us? In this video, I'll explore the origins and the nature of resentment. I'll also discuss its dangers, particularly in relation to mental health and resilience. Most importantly, I'll share 12 practical tips to help you manage and to overcome resentment so that it doesn't control your life. And lastly, I'll talk a bit about communicating your resentment to someone else in a way that builds a bridge instead of burning it down. Resentment is often described as a lingering feeling of anger or bitterness, particularly towards someone who has wronged us or whom we perceived to have wronged us. But it's more than just anger. It's anger that hasn't been expressed, resolved, or let go of. It festers over time, growing stronger as it's fed by our thoughts and our emotions. Historically, resentment has been recognized across cultures and eras. For instance, in ancient Greece, philosophers like Aristotle talked about a form of righteous anger tied to social justice. That's something we desire, like retribution, when we foster resentment. In contrast, the Stoics warned against allowing such feelings to take root, advocating for emotional detachment instead. Either way, it was regarded as something that will become your nemesis or your downfall. Psychologically, resentment often stems from unmet expectations or perceived injustices. It's born out of situations where we feel powerless, overlooked, or unfairly treated. Think about it. When a coworker gets credit for your hard work, or when a friend betrays your trust. These scenarios create the perfect breeding ground for resentment. Consider these real-life examples that I have listed here. Family dynamics. A sibling who feels they were treated unfairly compared to their brother or their sister. In the workplace, an employee who is constantly overlooked for promotions despite all their efforts can lead to resentment. In a romantic relationship, a partner who feels they are always compromising without reciprocation might feel resentful. A friend who feels used or taken for granted in a friendship could feel resentful. A parent who feels that their sacrifices are not appreciated by their children can also become resentful. And even communities in a cultural context that feel marginalized or discriminated against can become resentful. A person who feels unfairly compensated for their work, so on a financial level, they can feel resentful. Or someone who resents changes in their environment, such as gentrification or the loss of nature, can also become resentful. On a social level, an individual who feels left behind in a rapidly changing society often feels resentful. And physically, a person who's dealing with chronic illness might resent their body or resent their fate. And intellectually, someone who feels that their ideas or their intelligence are not valued can often feel resentful. And finally, on a spiritual level, a person who feels abandoned or betrayed by their faith or their religious community can also become resentful. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Now, this quote has been attributed to many people, but it encapsulates the destructive nature of resentment. It doesn't just harm our relationships with others, it actually harms us. Resentment can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. It eats away at our mental health, and it makes it difficult to maintain emotional balance. So according to research, unresolved resentment is linked to numerous physical ailments, including heart disease and even weakened immune function. Moreover, resentment can severely undermine our resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. When we hold on to resentment, we become stuck in the past, replaying our grievances over and over again. And this fixation on what should have been or could have been prevents us from moving forward and finding solutions to our challenges and our problems. Resentment also erodes our capacity for empathy and forgiveness, because key components of resilience is empathy and forgiveness. When we're consumed by bitterness, It's hard to see beyond our own pain, and that makes it difficult to connect with others and to build supportive relationships. And in extreme cases, resentment can lead to a cycle of retaliation and conflict even, whether it's in personal relationships, in the workplace, or even between communities and nations. And historically, we've seen this with many prolonged conflicts, such as tensions in Northern Ireland, the Middle East, or the Balkans, that have been fueled by deep-seated resentment passed down through generations. Resentment is particularly insidious when it comes to our most intimate relationships, those with our partners, parents, siblings, extended family members, and our friends. And these relationships are built on love, trust, and mutual respect. But resentment can slowly erode those foundations, leaving behind distance and discord. In intimate relationships, resentment can build over time due to unmet needs, unresolved conflicts, or feelings of being unappreciated. When one partner feels like they are always giving while the other is always taking, or when old wounds are never fully healed, resentment can create a barrier that blocks emotional intimacy. And this barrier can lead to a cycle of emotional withdrawal, where both partners feel increasingly disconnected. With our parents, resentment might stem from unresolved childhood issues, perceived favoritism, or a lack of support. And as we grow older, these feelings can intensify if they're not addressed. And that leads to strained relationships where communication is limited and interactions are filled with tension. Among siblings, resentment often arises as a result of comparisons, competition, or perceived unfair treatment. And whether it's about who received more attention growing up or who has been more successful in life later, these unresolved feelings can lead to sibling rivalry that persists into adulthood. Extended family members can also be sources of resentment, especially when there are ongoing family disputes or family feuds about inheritance issues or a lack of support during difficult times. And these resentments can lead to family gatherings becoming a great source of stress rather than joy. Amongst friends, they are also not immune to the effects of resentment either. When one friend feels neglected or taken for granted or betrayed, the relationship can become very strained, and resentment can cause people to withdraw from a friendship or to harbor grudges that prevent us from enjoying relationships as we once did. So the common thread in all these relationships is that resentment, if left unchecked, can lead to emotional distancing, decreased communication, and even the breakdown of a relationship. It's crucial to recognize and address resentment early on to maintain healthy and supportive connections with those that we care about. So now that we understand the dangers of resentment, let's talk about how to overcome it. And here are 12 practical tips. Acknowledge your feelings. Start by recognizing and admitting that you feel resentful. Avoiding or suppressing these emotions will only allow them to grow. Identify the source. Reflect on where the resentment is coming from. Is it tied to a specific event or a specific person, or is it more generalized? Because understanding the root cause is essential. Practice self-compassion. Please be kind to yourself. Acknowledge that your feelings are valid, but also recognize that holding on to those feelings is harmful to you. And please communicate. If possible, have an open and honest conversation with the person involved. Express your feelings without blaming or attacking. In a moment, I'm going to talk a bit more about communicating your resentment with compassion, but let's finish all the tips first. Shift your perspective. Try to see the situation from the other person's point of view. This doesn't mean excusing their behavior, but understanding it can help reduce your resentment. And then there's forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about condoning the wrong done to you, but it's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. It's actually a gift that you give yourself. Set boundaries. If someone's behavior continues to hurt you, set a clear boundary to protect your emotional well-being. I've created a great online course that'll teach you all the basics you need to know about setting healthy boundaries in a couple of hours. Check out the short introduction. We're going to talk about what boundaries are, why we need boundaries, what are healthy and unhealthy boundaries, and what happens when we don't have boundaries. I'm also going to offer you a number of different types of boundaries with lots of examples, and also practical tips on how you can determine the boundaries, set them and assert them, and also very good responses that you can give to the feedback and resistance that you will get when setting boundaries. The objectives of this course is for you to understand boundaries, to identify if, where, and how to work on them. My 8th tip is to let go of expectations. Often resentment is tied to unmet expectations, and letting go of these can help you to release the hold that resentment has on you. Focus on gratitude. Cultivate a mindset of gratitude. By focusing on what's good in your life, you can counterbalance the negative emotions that are associated with resentment. And please seek professional help. I can't say this often enough. If resentment is deeply ingrained, consider seeking therapy or counseling. A professional can help you work through these complex emotions. And also engage in physical activity. As you know, exercise can help you to release pent-up emotions, and it reduces your stress, makes it easier to let go of resentment. My email is in the description below for you to contact me directly if you need help with this. Finally, practice mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness can help you to stay present and prevent you from dwelling on past hurts. Meditation in particular can aid in releasing negative emotions. So as promised, I want to talk about communicating your resentment with compassion. So turning that resentment into a bridge for connection. When resentment builds up, it can create emotional distance, even in the closest relationships. But instead of letting it fester, you can turn that resentment into an opportunity to strengthen your bond. The key is to communicate your feelings with kindness, compassion, and with love. So start by acknowledging your own emotions without judgment. Understand that your resentment is a sign that something is important to you and it deserves to be expressed. When you approach the conversation, choose your words carefully. Use I statements to focus on your feelings rather than blaming the other person. For example, instead of saying, "You never listened to me," try, "I feel unheard when I share my thoughts, and that hurts." Also speak from a place of vulnerability, because that allows the other person to see how their actions have affected you. And this openness invites them to connect with your experience rather than to become defensive about what you say. So it's important to express not only your pain, but also your desire to strengthen the relationship. Emphasize that you're sharing these feelings because you care deeply and the connection is important to you and you want to work together to improve it. Finally, be prepared to listen. Resentment often has two sides, and hearing their perspective can foster mutual understanding. This kind of communication transforms resentment from a barrier into a bridge, and that will deepen your relationship rather than damage it. Resentment is a heavy burden to carry, but it's not one you have to bear forever. By understanding its roots and its impact, and by taking proactive steps to address it, you can free yourself from its grip. Remember, letting go of resentment isn't just about improving your relationship with others. It's about reclaiming your own peace of mind and building resilience that you need to thrive in the face of life's challenges. Thank you for watching, and I hope these insights and tips will help you on your journey to greater emotional freedom and personal growth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on building resilience and overcoming adversity.